In case you hadn't heard, the agency has reduced, without consultation, the amount that physiotherapists, occupational therapists, support coordinators and many other allied health services and supports can charge for their essential services. In a cost of living crisis, this decision effectively reduces the amount of allied health and disability support providers are being paid. Yes, you heard that right. In a cost of living crisis, the agency that runs the NDIS under this Labour government has reduced the amount of money paid to allied health services and disability providers, and this puts disabled people further at risk. I've heard from hundreds of NDIS participants and professionals who have detailed the very dire impacts of the NDIA's pricing decisions. One person in WA shared, and I quote, "Almost all of my colleagues have reported unpaid work and unpaid overtime, trying to ensure a client is supported. The hardest thing is telling clients in need that we cannot see and we cannot help them. Not because we don't want to, but because we are part of a system that does not value us or our work. People with disabilities are being abandoned." Another, who worked in the disability sector throughout their career, emailed me to say, "I am disappointed. I am burnt out, devalued, and now looking at financial stress due to the actions of the NDIS with the support of this Labour government." Now, from where I am sitting, it is clear that the NDIA failed to adequately consult providers and participants, and they have demonstrated a clear lack of understanding of how their decisions have harmful, immediate impacts for disabled people. Now let's talk about some of those impacts. The reality, whether the NDIA like it or not, is that for many disabled people, we need to access therapies outside of a doctor's office. Research shows, and our lived experience shows, that accessing therapies at home, at school, at our workplaces, has much greater outcomes for our well-being. To be frank, it is pretty difficult to get access to an OT to assess what your needs are for supporting you to pack your kids' lunches in your own kitchen, or what assistance you might need to have a shower when the OT is not able to travel to your home. For those outside the major cities, some people simply don't have the means or adequate support to travel into the city or the next town to have the therapy. Many regional and remote communities don't have local providers who can meet all the needs of those communities. However, these latest cuts mean that a physiotherapist who travels from Perth to regional WA to see participants once per week is no longer paid enough to provide that support. Rural, regional and remote loadings have been removed, and time travel has been cut to a maximum of 30 minutes, which is, I guess, in the agency's view, too bad for WA participants in beautiful Gin, who are already, and this is just their reality, Gin is over an hour from Perth by car. Their physiotherapist will no longer be able to provide weekly outreach services unless they do the travel for free, which in a cost of living crisis, nobody should be required to do. Telehealth to get physio isn't possible. And now we are hearing it is practically impossible, thanks to the NDIA, for a physio to travel from the city to your place. The outcome? No access to physio. Therapies like physio, occupational therapy, podiatry, and the like are critical for disabled people's daily functioning. But here we are, living in a world where the NDIS is no longer willing to put out a pricing agreement that enables access to this support locally. So now disabled people will either go without those supports altogether, or the NDIS will have to increase participant plans to cover more transport and support worker hours to make those appointments possible. Devastatingly, it'll cost the agency more when all of this comes out in the wash. The NDIA say it is committed to improving services for people in the bush, but in reality, the agency is putting up more and more barriers for participants to access support. Now, I've heard from many plan managers and support coordinators. Many participants are having to find new support coordinators and plan managers because some smaller providers are closing as they can no longer absorb these increasing costs. These professionals, and they are professionals, haven't seen a pay increase in 7 years. Again, let me underline that. In 7 years, there has not been an increase to the price that the NDIA is willing to pay these professionals. Think about how much the cost of living has gone up in that time. And yet they are having to absorb increasing costs and to perform more and more hidden administrative functions, and to do this in the context of administration processes and IT processes, such as the impact of the IT system known as PACE. And anyone out there familiar with this system knows the problems with that particular program. In a sector that is already under stress, we are very likely to see many highly qualified and compassionate people leave because they simply can't make ends meet as the NDIS changes so many of the goalposts and expectations over and over. We've already seen a report of one provider who has announced their closure in August, directly as a result of these pricing arrangements. Now, this will mean that over 100 NDIS participants will no longer have access to speech pathology services. The NDIS Minister needs to demand that the NDIA review its pricing arrangements immediately. Then we must have a full and proper review of the pricing arrangements process to ensure they are independent, transparent and fair. This Labor government has gutted the NDIS in so many ways since they first got in 2022, and every single time disabled people and community are ultimately the ones who suffer. We must not forget all of this is happening because of the cuts to the NDIS that were underpinned by agreements and financial sustainability frameworks that the Senate was first told didn't exist, then was told did exist, but that we couldn't see them. So again, in conclusion, I call for the government to release the financial sustainability framework which the Senate has been demanding.
Authorised by Steele-John, Australian Greens, Canberra.